On today's episode of My Isolation podcast, Alex returns and so does everyone's favourite fearless hero. But is this film really as good as everyone says it is? Listen in and find out more. And hello again, everybody, and welcome back to an episode of My Isolation podcast. And today, we're talking about Puss in Boots 2, The Last Wish. After when was this movie came out? This movie came out in
I don't know, February, I think it was.
I think it was February, yeah.
It was earlier this year, definitely.
Well, it was like a 2022 holdover, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was meant to come out sooner, but
yeah,
it was pushed back.
Yeah, it's all right. And yeah, Alex has returned. He has returned from the grave.
Hello, I'm no longer dead.
Nah, well, I mean,
I'm on my last life though now.
You're on your last life.
Yeah.
What happened? How'd you?
Well, you know that there's that whole thing with Trump being arrested now.
Yeah.
It was me. I did it. But he was a tough son of a bitch, and he got me.
Oh, right. He got you 8 times.
He got me 8 times. He got me with eight bullets. But then he ran out, so then I was like, haha, a fool.
Goddamn Trump, man.
That's how I got him.
Goddamn Trump, man. Hate that guy. Can't stand him. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Puss in Boots 2, The Last Wish. Finally, I think I didn't get around to... So you saw this when it came out, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it quite a bit when it came out.
Yeah, I was going to go see it in cinemas. But literally, like, the one day I went to go see it, it was sold out.
Yeah, I mean, this film I think has been did very well.
Oh yeah,
if I'm correct. So I'm not surprised that you couldn't watch it. When it was the height of its popularity, and it was running in cinemas for ages. Like I think it was like a good 3 months of it being in the cinema, which is pretty rare nowadays. And they sent it onto digital as well, but people were still watching it in the cinemas, which is great.
I feel like this year's been a good year for animation in general, though. Like with this.
Oh yeah. It's gotten to the stage now where animation is getting a little bit more. The people working on it are getting a bit more, I think, creative control and freedom to make the kind of things that they just want to make without too much studio interference. And I think that's just working.
Yeah, exactly.
For it.
Yeah. I mean, because you had this movie, you had Mario Brothers, you had Across the Spider-Verse, you had TMNT. Mutant Mayhem, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then also you had even Elemental, which started off quite soft, but ended up having a pretty big comeback, which is
it did, and it looked like it was going to not do well at all. Like it really didn't look like it was going to do well, but then it just pulled it out at the last second. But it's weird to think that this is a year where like a Pixar film is not doing the best out of all the big animated films that have come out this year.
Well, I think a lot of that just has to do with. I mean, I feel like I don't normally blame everything on one person, but I feel like with Pixar and Disney's recent box office output, particularly with their animation division, I think pretty much all the blame can be put on Bob Chapek.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because his approach to animation it's just kid stuff, and
put it this way, right? So the box office for Elemental was 484.4 million, right? And its budget was 200 million. So that's probably by Disney terms not very successful. It still technically made money on it, but it's not. But it only just made it, so it made back its budget and a bit more, which is when you think about that for Disney is pretty unheard of. And then you look at Puss in Boots, which made the same amount in the box office, by the way, like nearly the same amount. That film cost between 90 to 110 million. So, you compare those numbers, it's like, oh, well, damn, man. Pixar is in the losing. And then I think Mario Brothers made, all the money in the world.
Mario Brothers is now the second highest grossing animated movie ever made.
That's mental. And we've got another Studio Ghibli film coming out this year as well.
That'll
which
be
is mental
good
to think about. I'm definitely going to watch that when that comes out.
Nice. But yeah, but anyway, so before we get into properly into the Last Wish, first, Alex, because we were supposed to do Barbie and TMT together,
We
but
did, yes.
scheduling conflicts. So do you want to just quickly tell
Oh,
us your thoughts on those two movies?
yeah. Which one would you like to start with?
Just maybe Barbie because that came out first, and then
Yes,
yeah,
And also Barbie is the more hot button issue.
mm,
This is the one that all the men out there. This is for you men out there who didn't like Barbie. But ashamed to say, for you guys who didn't like it, I actually really loved it. I generally really
mm.
enjoyed it a lot.
Oh yeah,
It was
same, yeah,
very clear that the entire film was meant to not take itself seriously. Like it's a comedy film,
mm,
just dealing with like but then also had like this sort of under element about like
yeah,
women's place in the world, and like
mm,
this idea that women don't have to be defined so simply by
yeah,
like the way they look or like what their profession is. They can just be, which is ultimately what the best thing about the film is that last message is really good.
mm.
Yeah, it was a great film, and then I really loved Ryan Gosling as Ken. Was fantastic.
Oh yeah, he was
He
amazing.
was so funny. The
He was
whole the
the best.
whole the whole thing with him like discovering about patriarchy and then heading back to Bob, but him being the villain in
Yeah,
general, all of
yeah,
it was really well done, really clever.
mm,
Like I didn't, there wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, this is feeling a bit heavy-handed, and I don't know if I'm really like,
yeah.
this might just be a little bit too like, oh yeah, aren't men terrible? Which yeah, of course they
I,
are, but that's
Yeah, I did mention
yeah,
that when I did the podcast on it. I felt like, when you delve into stuff like that, I feel like some studios, particularly Sony, like they have this they kind of like it feels like they're trying too hard to appeal to that crowd. Um
or
so
it just
like
doesn't feel
yeah.
genuine. It doesn't feel like it's
Yeah,
coming from a
exactly.
place of like a person actually trying to say, hey, look,
Yeah.
like this is the things that I've dealt with in my life, or that
Mhm.
women as a whole have dealt with,
Yeah,
and it
exactly.
feels a little bit kind of um, just sort of hollow.
Yeah.
But I think that the film, because obviously it was written and directed by a woman,
Mm,
I feel like that voice came across very clearly through and wasn't like
exactly, yeah.
pushed down at all, which is fantastic.
Oh
And you
yeah.
know what?
Mm.
More films like that in general would be fantastic
Oh
from
yeah.
all more different minorities
Oh
in
yeah, like
general.
I mean, Greta, have you seen her other movies, Greta Gerwig, Lady Bird and Little Women?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I've seen Little
They're,
Women.
oh yeah,
That was quite
those
good. Yeah,
yeah, they're great and stuff. And also put some no, and also then TMNT Mutant Mayhem. What do you think
yes,
about? How do you
I
find that
enjoyed that
movie?
a lot as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan,
Yeah,
so going into this, I was like, all right, it's going to be another origin story. Let's see what they do to change it up. And I really liked what they did with it. To be honest with you,
yeah,
I think making them younger was an interesting move to make,
yeah,
and like sort of being like, no, this is like literally their origin as like them becoming the heroes
yeah,
of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that they are.
yeah,
It's like literally their origin story, like a superhero origin story, and it
mm,
works. My only sort of major complaint is I think it would have been better if the Superflies group of mutants, if
mm,
maybe they were introduced earlier in the film, and then that became the whole thing of like they all start hanging out with each other, and it's almost kind of like oh, they're just kids getting in the turtles are just like kids getting in the wrong crowd, and at
yeah,
the last minute they realize, oh no, he's actually Superfly is actually not this really cool guy that we thought he is. He's actually, he wants
mm,
to kill people. And
yeah,
I think maybe pushing April to like the second film might have been a better idea personally.
mm,
But I get why it was made the way it does. It is trying to bank on that, classic Turtles nostalgia. So I
yeah,
get it.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
really do. And
mm,
I think as well a lot of the voice actors for like the other mutants were really underutilized and just weren't really given enough screen time. But apart from that, I really enjoyed it.
mm. And coincidentally uses the same animation style as the movie we're about to talk about as well. Does that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, Spider Verse in general, going back a few
yeah,
years now, has just sort of opened up the floodgates of people just sort of going, oh, like you don't have to make 3D animation like
mm,
static and boring and like have all the characters move realistically. It's like no, you can just do whatever you want. Like
yeah.
that's it's fantastic. And I think
Mm.
I was thinking about this the other day. I actually think it started with the Hotel Transylvania films
I can
because
see that actually, yeah, because they're very
that's when I remember like sort of 3D animation being like, hang on, that's
mm,
2D animation
yeah.
principles being used in 3D. And then I watched the behind the scenes on it because it's Gendy Tartakovsky who made it, who
Yeah,
made
Samurai Jack, yeah,
Dexter's Lab. and
Mm.
like I made a bunch of cartoons and worked on a lot of
Yeah.
cartoons in like the early 90s and 2000s. So
Yeah.
if you're a kid from that era, you probably watched one of his cartoons. And yeah, it just sort of looking at it is like, oh, he's just making 2D films but in 3D,
Mm.
and just that's just sort of seemed to just become the new thing now, which I'm very happy about. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So that's his thoughts on Barbie and TMNT. So before,
Yeah, go watch them. They're good films.
yeah. And before we get into this movie, we're just going to do our best to quickly skim over the Shrek franchise and the last Puss in Boots
Yes.
movie. So, uh,
So
Shrek 1 from 2001 is an all-time classic.
classic,
I don't care.
classic.
We agree it's a classic then. Yeah, it still holds up to this very
Yeah,
day.
like
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's not. It's definitely very dated for its time. It definitely feels like an early 2000s film, but with the music
Yeah.
choices and all that. Is why I don't really. I just sometimes don't like pop music being used in films because I think it dates them really really hard.
Yeah.
But I think even without it, it definitely feels like something from that period.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the better
Mm.
ones from that period. It's still a really funny film,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just it's
Yeah.
classic sort of fairy tale but reversed.
Mm. Exactly. I do like how it's a massive, like, kind of like a fuck you to fairy tales in a weird way. You
Yeah,
know?
well, just make it. It was clearly because obviously it's DreamWorks who made
Yeah.
Shrek, which was founded
Yeah,
by
and Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, yeah,
Yeah,
who
because
obviously
he was.
worked at
Mm,
Disney and then left Disney. So
yeah, I think Mike wasn't he meant good. I think the whole story about that is he was supposed to get like a promotion or something, and he didn't get it, so he
just
left.
founded his own animation studio,
Yeah,
which makes sense. There's
yeah,
more money in that than there is in a promotion or a
mm,
job. I'll tell you that now. If you're
yeah.
successful.
Also,
Um,
since we're talking about Shrek, R.I.P. Steve Harwell, who was the lead singer of Smash Mouth,
yes,
who sang the song All
yes,
Star.
rest in peace. He
That
did sing the song All Star, man. He
yeah,
is now one of the
yeah,
stars in the sky, man. Only
mm,
stars break the
yeah,
mold, and he
exactly.
was one of them. Rest in
That is
peace.
that is a banger song though, Smash Mouth.
That
Honestly.
song is really good. I don't think I've ever
Mm.
listened to another Smash Mouth song, but that one song is
Yeah.
really good. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. But yeah, Shrek One's a classic. Shrek Two, one of the greatest sequels ever made. Really, a big, massive improvement over the first one.
Yeah,
In
I don't.
yeah.
I don't know. I've never really been hot on the other Shrek films,
Oh,
and this is
really?
so. I'll say it now just to kind of cap it off. I don't mind Shrek 2. I think it's still good, but I think it's a little too. I don't know. I just think the humor's not right where I thought it was. It loses a bit of that cynical edge
Mm,
a little bit in the second one, and I think I'm just not really as into that as much. But
yeah.
I have never seen and then I've never seen Shrek 4, and I've never seen the other Puss in Boots film, by the way, though.
All right.
I would say now.
Okay. That's fine.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's all right.
No, the Trek Two, I still love that movie because I think
Yeah,
it improves a lot. Well, it kind of it I would well the first one's still good, but I feel like the second one improves a lot from it. I do like the story and I like the development the characters go on and the introduction of Puss in Boots as a character, as well as
yeah. I will
the very
say
godmothers.
that
Mm,
that is the one thing Shrek
yeah,
2 does really well is with Puss in Boots.
yeah. Also, I really love the fairy godmother. I think she's a terrific villain,
Hmm.
and yeah. And then Shrek the Third,
Oh.
shit, just garbage. You
Now, do you
don't
understand why I've not watched the other films? Because I watched
because
that film,
yeah, because
and
Shrek
I
the
was
Third
like,
sucks.
absolutely not. I'm not watching any more of these films.
Yeah,
I just that film was so bad.
yeah.
Even as
It
a
was.
kid, I was like, no, this film's
Oh
shit.
yeah,
I'm
I think.
never watching it
Oh
again.
yeah, I remember going to the cinema to see it, and I was just like, this is terrible.
I don't even
Uh,
think I watched it in the cinema. I think I
mm,
might have watched it on like TV one night.
mm.
Like I was so, but then again, I don't know. I think when did Shrek 3 come out? So let's see when Shrek
2007, I think.
2007. So I would have been
Yeah,
about. When was I born? Let me just do quick maths. So I would have been about 13. So I think I was kind of moving out of that phase of like not
mm,
really wanting to watch animated films anymore.
yeah.
At least in the cinema, I was more like, no, I'm a cool boy now. I'm gonna
I'm
watch
cool
anime
boy.
instead. I'm gonna watch Dragon Ball Z instead because I'm cool. Anyway, yeah. So Shrek the Third,
Shit.
flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, yeah. Shrek 4 is alright, actually. It was a decent enough ending. Now
Hmm.
that's Shrek 5's gonna undo all that stuff, but we'll see what happens there. The first Puss in Boots movie I never saw until I think January this year, because I was planning to see the second one, so I thought I might as well watch the first one, just to see what I was missing. And it's alright, it's okay, it's solid enough. Humpty Dumpty can get annoying at times, but apart from that,
Yeah,
yeah, apart from that though, it's all right.
I never
But
watched it. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's all right. And but I don't think you really need to watch this one. Which yes, we're going to talk about this one now. But I don't
We're going
think
to
you really
talk
need
about
to. I don't think you
the
need
real.
to like. You don't need to watch the first one to get this one. I think this one's a
Absolutely
base.
not. No,
Mm,
not at all. Like I didn't watch it, and I fucking
yeah,
love this film.
like
So spoilers, audience. If you're wondering my opinion, I really like this new film.
yeah. I remember I finally watched it because I think me and my housemates we're in a flat together.
Hmm.
So we were just thought, let's watch a movie and get drunk and stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll find Puss in Boots 2 on Blu-ray and watch it. So I hunted it down, found it at CEX for like £8, and then we watched it. And honestly, I thought it was a really good movie. I really
Uh,
enjoyed it. I thought it was again much like Shrek 2. I thought it was a big improvement over the first one. I thought I love the story
Um.
and the characters and the development they go on and the
Yeah.
animation style as well, and the music as well. I don't think that is there any pop songs in this one because I don't think there is. I can't remember on the
Not
top
that
of
I
my
can
head.
remember off the top of my
I
head. I think there might have been one in the credits, but I think
hmm.
that's it.
I think I remember there's a song that's sung at the start of the movie, but apart from that, I don't think so.
Oh no, that's just Antonio
Hmm.
Banderas
Yeah,
singing Puss in Boots song.
and
It's not
Antonio
even a pop.
Banderas, good old
Yeah, I
Antonio
mean,
Banderas.
all right. I'm going to say something really controversial now.
Hmm.
Are you ready? Are you sitting down,
Yeah,
Connor, for this one?
I'm
I
sitting down.
actually think I actually think Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish is the best film in the Shrek series.
I can see that. To be fair,
I think it's better than the original Shrek. I think it's
Hmm.
better than all the sequels and that Puss in Boots film that I never watched. Genuinely, I just think it was just, yeah, it was the
Hmm.
exact kind of thing I needed to see at the time.
Yeah,
Where I was like, yeah, the Spider Verse, but like, what really else is there in terms of like animation in the West
yeah.
that's really like interesting and then this film came along. I heard everybody say it was good.
Hmm.
Everybody was like, oh, this new Puss in Boots film was actually really good, and I was like, nah, there's no way. But I figured I'd give it a chance because of how much it was being talked about, and then I was like, oh shit, yeah,
Yeah.
this film is really good, and it's
Hmm.
completely caught me by surprise. And I think it's
Yeah.
been a while since I've watched a film that's done that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I remember when this movie was announced. I think it got announced in 2018. Yeah, because I remember. I think yeah, it got announced in 2018, and when I heard about it, because I think it got announced with Chris Milanderi, because when he became part of DreamWorks as I think creative consultant,
Hmm.
and when I heard that, I was like, oh, I think he announced that in Shrek 5 as well, and I was like, oh, I don't care for those. And then when the trailers came out for it, I was like, it looks fine, I guess. I like the new animation style, but and then I heard people gushing over it, and I was like, what the fuck has this film done? What has this film done? And now I finally watched it, and I was like, oh, I can see what this movie has done now. This movie has,
He just had like really good character writing.
mm,
That's all
good,
you need to make a. That's all you need to do to make a great film. You just
mm,
need good characters,
good
and
characters.
I think it does a really good job of building on like the character of Puss in Boots,
Yeah,
from like
exactly.
the Shrek series and from like
Yeah.
the standalone film, I assume.
The standalone
Um,
film is a prequel to the Shrek films, but this movie is set after them.
yeah,
Which I quite liked about that. I thought if you made it another prequel like before Shrek, I don't know. I don't think that would have worked.
no,
Yeah, I feel
I
like
don't think so.
I like the idea that he's a bit of a loner and that he kind of drifted away from Shrek and Donkey and all those other
Well,
characters to.
he's a swashbuckling hero. He's your
Mm,
typical. He goes
yeah,
around and he goes on adventures and he gets himself in trouble and he's
mm,
a womanizer.
mm,
He's your classic swashbuckling hero. That's what he does. He's Robin Hood.
yeah, exactly. But
Um,
as a cat,
yeah,
as a
but
cat,
yeah, as a cat, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, Zorro would be obviously the best example to give considering who plays him. So
exactly, exactly. Um, Yeah, and yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Thought it was really good. I also quite liked how let's go on to the story. That's our first
yes,
point of the day. I liked how
yes,
this one, because obviously with the Shrek movies, the previous ones, they're more of a parody of fairy tales, and they're more like the cynical kind of "fuck you" fairy tales kind of movies. And I liked how the start of this one actually opens up with an opening scroll that says, "This is a fairy tale." And kind of, and this instead of like being cynical to it, this movie's
hmm.
story and stuff, it actually
He
commits to
embraces it. Yeah,
embraces the fairy tale. Yeah, embraces it, which I thought was really cool and quite new and quite unique, particularly for considering this is a movie set in the Shrek world, a franchise that usually mocks parodies of the fairy tales. Like in the second film,
Yeah.
they make fun of the Little Mermaid by having Fiona grab the Little Mermaid, throw in the sea, and she gets eaten by sharks. But no, in this one they massively embraced it they embraced the fairy tale angle, which I quite liked, and I liked how solid and quite adult the story was as well. Like this story is about death. It's literally about dying. Like that's Puss in Boots is literally
Is
yeah
Puss in Boots having an existential crisis? That's what the whole
mm,
film is.
yeah
He's
exactly
realized that, like, the lives that he's wasted,
mm,
he'll never be able to get them back.
yeah
Or is given a chance to get them back, and then
yeah
he has a full blown existential crisis about him coming to an end and his existence. But then it's like, what is he really terrified of? His legend, or like living up to being who he is. And it's just a really simple, straightforward story,
mm,
and it completely fits with an egotistical character like Puss in Boots.
yeah
And
exactly
yeah, it's fantastic.
yeah. I do like the the fact again this is about him. Kind of it's a story kind of about how he took all his lives for granted, and he took kind of everything in his life for granted, and now that he's on his last life, he kind of learns to
Learns the
appreciate
value.
the value of it,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
appreciate the things around him, which I feel like particularly especially after we came out of the pandemic, I feel like that's a kind of an important message as well. Don't take your life for granted, live it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's just a really
Yeah.
simple message. Honestly,
Mm,
it's a
yeah.
universal one as well.
Mm,
That
yeah,
I think a lot
exactly.
of people can understand, and I think it's why it's been so popular,
Mm,
because it is just something that we can all understand. The concept of being afraid of death, and like
yeah.
the feeling like have I done enough with my life, or like have I wasted it? And it's
Mm.
just really simple, really straightforward, and yeah, it worked. It worked
I
for that character.
I feel like I have that feeling every birthday when I'm like, oh god, have I wasted my life? And then I'm like,
I got over it a while
yeah,
ago. It's all right, man.
yeah.
Whatever.
Then my friends are just like have to reassure me and be like, no, you did not. You have not
Hey,
wasted your life.
hey, Connor.
Yeah,
All you can do is try your best.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's my advice to you people out there. If you ever worry
Mm.
about it, just try your best.
Yeah, exactly. Just have
That's
fun.
enough. Have
Just have
fun. Do
fun.
enough.
Do what you love. Do
Go
exactly what you love.
go on an adventure like
Yeah,
Puss in
exactly.
Boots,
Go
and
on, go on.
then
Have plenty of adventures.
get involved with many wacky characters.
Mm. Definitely, yeah. Um, but yeah, I do love the story in this movie and and the
Mm.
themes of death and stuff like death and living a life to your fullest, be appreciating what you have, and also like even with the other characters as well. Like you have Goldilocks who wants a normal
Yeah,
family
all the
back.
characters want
They
something,
want
but they all
something, yeah.
want this. They all want the same thing, which is like to be with the people that they care about. That's
Mm.
ultimately what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Except
It's,
for the villain. Except for the villain
well,
Jack,
except for Big Jack Horner, who
Big
I
Jack
fucking
Horner. Yeah.
love. I
Oh
love him
yeah.
so much.
God, yeah, I love
He's
him.
such a good villain.
Mm.
And like the concept of him is so funny, where it's just like, do you know what? That's kind of a thing where it goes back to kind of a bit. It's got that old Shrek DNA in it, where it's making fun of other people,
Yeah.
other animated films, for always having a villain that has to be
Mm.
sympathetic. And don't get me
Mm.
wrong, I like that. I like sympathetic villains. I like it when you give me a
Yeah.
villain that's like you can kind of understand why they've become the person that they've done. But in this film, they've kind of just made fun of that and said, no, this guy is just generally evil.
Oh
He's
yeah.
a
I
psychopath who has no feelings, and he
mm.
just cares about power. That's all he cares about.
I
And
have
like, it's
yeah.
great.
I've said
I loved it so much.
I've said this before, but I have missed the days of where villains were generally just evil. I don't like the sympathetic villains, but I feel like that's been very
Well,
overdone now, a little
yeah,
bit.
100%, yeah, and I think
Yeah.
as well, what I think a lot of people get confused about that in terms of writing is they go, well, if I don't make a villain sympathetic, how can I make them, likable or anything like that? And it's like, no, you don't have to make them sympathetic to be likable.
They're
You
called
know,
bad guys, you're
well, it's
not
not.
supposed
It's
to.
not. It's not even just that. Like just because think about it this way, right? If a guy does something evil, right? Like let's say he kills a puppet. Just
Mm.
as an example, let's just say, do you know what he could do directly afterwards? He could just have a glass of orange juice. All right,
Mm.
that's still a thing that he can do, right? He's not
Yeah.
a monster. You know what I mean? That's all you need to do to make a villain feel realistic. Is they can
Mm.
still do normal things that you do. Like
Mm.
that's the classic example for me is Skeletor from the He-Man cartoons back in the day. Like
Eh.
yeah, he's evil. Like
Yeah.
his goals are completely and utterly being evil, but
Mm.
he's a bumbling buffoon. and that's
Mm.
fantastic. But do you know who's not a bloodthirsty barbarian? It is Puss in Boots,
Oh no,
because
definitely not.
he's a bloodthirsty swashbuckler.
He's a
um,
fearless hero. That's the
he
song I think
is.
they
Who's
sing
your
it.
favorite fearless hero? Oh, that song's so good.
Yeah.
The
For
music
some
in
reason,
this film as well is really good
yeah. Oh, the
as
music's
well.
great. Yeah, music's fantastic. Um, yeah, and let's get into the characters now. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
characters.
let's get into it. We've talked about the
Story.
titular hero
Yeah,
enough as well. We get what he is. He's a swashbuckling hero with a big ego
mm.
who's reached his last life and
And
is
yeah,
coming to grips with that, as well as
I, I,
potentially getting more lives with a
I did.
swishing star.
Yeah, I did enjoy seeing his anxiety though, particularly when he's having his panic
Oh
attacks and
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That was
Like
really well
those were
done.
really good, really well
Really well
done.
done.
I feel like I don't know. Would you say they're quite accurate to what a panic attack is like? And
Well, I've never
or
had a panic attack, really.
same?
Not to that
Yeah.
degree.
Mm.
But I've seen other people like just floating around the internet and stuff like that who've said like, oh, that's pretty accurate to what a
Yeah.
panic attack can feel like to the point where it's like your heart's racing so fast that you feel you can't really control it and you can't relax and sit down, and then your
Yeah.
breathing becomes ragged and that makes you feel worse. So
Mm.
you start to get more anxious, and then
Yeah.
which is why a therapy dog, for instance, is very good for that, because it helps calm you down, because it
Yeah.
releases like I forgot what emotion, what chemical it is. I think it's like oxy something. I can't remember,
Mm.
but like so it helps your body. It helps your body literally release a hormone that reduces your heart rate essentially.
Yeah.
So boom, there you go, kids.
Uh,
Science.
Science. We'll get
And
to
then
the
that
fairy.
I was
We'll,
going to
we'll get
say, yeah.
we'll get to the fairy dog in just a second. But right now, let's talk about Kitty Softpaws first of all, who's
Kitty
voiced by
softballs, yes.
Salma. Salma. I can't pronounce her
Hayek.
name.
Hayek or
Yeah.
Hayek, isn't it, or something like that? Or
Hayek.
Hayek.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
The
I know she's.
classics, Selma Hayek. She's
Oh
great.
yeah, she is.
She's
She's a
great.
legendary actress. Yeah. So because you never saw the first one, did you? So because Kitty Softpaws was actually introduced in
Yeah, I know she
the
was in the
first one.
first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So like having not seen the first one, what did you think of her as an overall
Yeah.
character to him?
I think it was pretty clear from what her point was in the film, and that she's this old
Yeah.
flame that Puss had. But obviously, as we learn through the
Mm.
film, they were originally intended to be married, but he
But
left her at the altar.
and she didn't.
Well, they
She
left
didn't
each
bother.
other at the altar.
Yeah. She didn't bother showing up because she knew he wouldn't show up,
Yeah,
which is quite
exactly. Yeah.
sad.
But that's sort of the whole thing. I think it's fine enough that she's obviously this person that's been burned by people a lot in the past, who doesn't trust a lot of people. She
Yeah.
then obviously meets back up with Puss in Boots, her original, one of the few people she did actually trust, and they sort of start to rekindle their relationship.
Yeah.
And there's ups and downs throughout
Mm.
the film,
And obviously, yeah, she learns to
Yeah,
trust him again, and then
yeah,
obviously
and I think
there's a twist at the end. Well, the big kind of drama at the end where she doesn't trust him briefly, and then
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's maybe the only thing I don't like about her character, is that I think her motivation for wanting the last wish is pretty like whatever. It's just
Yeah,
like, I wanted to wish for somebody who I could trust, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, right. I get it. But it's like, but overall, I didn't mind it because there was like the character's still good. Like she's still funny.
mm,
She still does plenty of stuff on her own, and she's like a good like sort of
yeah,
thwarting character against Puss in Boots, but also like they work together really well. Yeah, it just, and Salma Hayek did a great job as
yeah,
with the voice, so I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah.
fine by
Salma
me.
Hayek, yeah, she did a good job with that one. Yes, I think he's off. It was good seeing her again, and the fact that because I had watched the first one, it was good seeing what happened to him after the first one, because obviously there's a set after that and after Shrek Forever After. So it was good to see kind of like what happened between that time. Because obviously, if you watch the first one all that time ago and you jump into this one, you're just there like, why is he not with her? What happened to her? It does, and you do ask yourself a lot of questions, and it does leave you kind of it does interest you a little bit to find out what happened between these two characters that we didn't see on screen between the first Puss in Boots and the second Shrek film.
Absolutely.
And also like her design and stuff, that was really good, and the way that she was animated and her moves and stuff.
Yeah, everybody was great in this film in terms of like aesthetics
Yeah.
and stuff. They all look great.
Yeah, and we've got the fairy dog, Perito. Perito?
Burrito, yeah.
Burrito,
Which
yeah.
just means puppy.
Yeah,
In
it just means puppy.
Yeah, because that's what
he was a very funny character. What I liked about him though is that he could have very easily have turned to that typical like annoying kids movie character.
He's just an annoying sidekick character,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was all right.
Like,
I liked him a lot.
but they were able to avoid that stereotype, and by making him, I think, by making sure they didn't go too far off that kind of line, and making him and Puss have this kind of almost this kind of Donkey Shrek kind of relationship.
Yeah, just like a
Almost,
relationship where
yeah.
they bond through each other. They don't like it. Well, Puss doesn't like him at first,
Mm,
but then obviously throughout the film, he finds to trust
yeah.
him, and like obviously there's a whole scene where he helps him calm down when he's having an anxiety attack. And yeah, I think he's just perfectly fine, funny. He's probably one of the funniest characters they've had in the Shrek film in a while as well. Like yeah,
Mm,
just simple, straightforward idiot character.
yeah. But yeah, I mean that is pretty much what Shrek and Donkey's relationship is really. Like
Mm,
Shrek needs Donkey and he
very
hates
much.
Donkey, and then he
At
learns
first,
to like
yeah,
him. Yeah, at first,
then
and
they
he learns
become
to
close friends.
like him over time. Which I quite like about that. I did also really like a Big Jack Horner as well. Let's talk about him as well.
Oh mate,
He
Big
was a
Jack
great
Horner.
villain. I loved how very Donald Trump he was
No, he's
in
just
this.
he's
Yeah,
just a he's just narcissistic. That's all he
mm,
really is. Really, like you can
yeah,
see goes back from like that whole like brief flashback to when he was a kid,
mm,
and like it just like just you just see this like sort of like this complete and utter nepo like performance kid
mm.
who just like hated the fact he was never getting enough attention,
Yeah, and
and
he
then
was
obviously
being
grew older and just like grew to be this person who's just like completely self-centered and just like it's just like I want everything pretty much. I also like the fact that he hoards magical items. I thought that was really cool. It was like a
mm,
little gimmicky thing for him to do.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah. And
and he's
I
evil
liked
as
how
shit.
he's pretty evil as well. My best moment though is when like probably one of the best moments is because obviously he's got a Jimmy Cricket on as his
Yes,
conscience.
the conscience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the best parts with him that quite like is when they're trying to cross the bridge and he's got his servants.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the wagons going across them, and then they all kind of fall to their demise. And then Jimmy Cricket's just like, "What are you doing?" And he just has this massive mental breakdown because like,
You're evil. And he goes, "Oh, what took you so long, idiot?"
yeah,
Yeah, it's perfect. He was just doing it. He knew that obviously Jiminy Cricket was never going to change who he is, so he just was like, "I'm just going to fuck with this guy until he finally realizes that
yeah, finally catches him.
I'm an
Mm,
irredeemable monster, and I don't
yeah,
care."
I liked,
It's great.
and yeah, I also really liked obviously Goldilocks and Three Bears, voiced
Yeah.
by Olivia Colman, Ray Winston, Samson Ko, and
Mhm.
obviously Florence Pugh as Goldilocks, who they all did a good job of that. I really
Yeah.
liked their family dynamic. I loved how like they actually accepted Goldilocks into the family rather than how like in the actual
I
fairy.
liked her
Yeah,
wish as well, where she was like,
mm,
"Oh, I'm going to wish for a real family," because she always felt like she didn't belong.
yeah,
Because obviously she's a human child in a family of
yeah,
theirs. But then
yeah,
obviously at the end of the film, they learn that it's like, well, no, we
mm,
always wanted you around. It's not the same without you, Goldilocks, and we're like, yay! Nice, tender little moment. It was good, yeah. I
mm,
really enjoyed all of them.
yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
And then obviously the last character we got to talk about really the
Well,
wolf,
well, well. If it isn't the
Death,
big bad wolf,
the big bad wolf.
aka
Yeah.
Death. Yeah, I mean, what can be said? What can be said about this character that hasn't already been said?
I mean,
He's so fucking cool.
he's cool. He's terrifying.
I,
He's
I
like
love I loved him.
chilling.
I was like that first
Mm,
intro scene where he's like in the bar. As soon as he like appeared, then
mm.
was like whistling. I was like, nah, whatever this character is, I'm instantly in love with him. And then
And then
it turned out to be terrifying. And then I was like, oh my god, yes, do more
and
of this in children's films. Make more terrifying characters in children's films.
he's
It's love being scared.
I loved his little his whistle as well. How like
Oh, that's fantastic. That was just
sinister it
such a
was.
great little
Mm.
character
And
development.
I loved how straight to the point he was. Like when he introduced himself, he goes, I am deaf, and not metaphorically or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's a
I
that's
am
a
deaf.
line that's been
Yeah, yeah.
memed
He's
to
like,
no end because it is just such a
mm,
memorable quote.
yeah. He's like,
Everything about Death was
mm,
pretty memorable. He's really simple as well. It's just he's a wolf in a cloak.
mm,
He's got
and
two sickles. Yeah, all right, like a scythe. Just a
mm,
different version of the same farming tool. Like
yeah,
it's so like well constructed.
yeah, definitely. And I just love, yeah. And again, I just love that line. I am deaf, straight up. It's like, oh,
It's just the
no,
fact as well that obviously he beats Puss in Boots really easily in the first fight as
yeah,
well. You get established straight away that he's a threat.
Yeah,
and he's not,
exactly.
he's not playing by
He,
the same rules as these other characters. He's not a cartoon character, really. He's
mm,
genuinely terrifying thing to fight against.
yeah,
And it's just
and
like, yeah. And then he makes Puss in Boots call through a fucking shit pipe. I mean, how
yeah,
cool is that? Ah,
yeah,
so good. And then
mm,
that whistle just appears, like when he just does that
yeah.
whistle, you're like, oh, there he is.
There he
Also, do
is.
you know about the whole thing about him being present? Um, obviously the film opens up with Puss in Boots fighting a giant.
Yeah,
Do you know that he's actually visible in the crowd?
seriously.
I'm not kidding, yeah, because he said
Oh
he was
wow.
there. Remember, Connor, he
Yeah.
said he was there
Oh
for
yeah.
all the deaths.
All the deaths. Yeah,
He saw all
he
the
was
deaths,
keeping
including
track.
that one. And there's like a
Mm.
shot where it pans over the crowd as he's fighting the giant, and he's just standing there in the back.
God, could
And
you
I was
imagine?
like,
Yeah.
when I learned that, I was like, man, that's
Mm.
so cool. Like
That
that
is. Yeah.
that alone is what made me sort of like, all right, now this film is great.
Mm.
Like just a genuinely well made film that people
Yeah.
really cared about
Could
making.
you could you imagine if they did a sequence where they're flashing back to all the other Shrek movies, and you just happen to like notice him, and where they've like animated him in the background in certain shots?
I think I
Actually,
did. I think I did read. I think I did read a post that said like that like the big bad wolf from this film and like the one from the Shrek films are the same character or something ridiculous like that. And I was
oh
like,
really?
nah. And I was like, nah,
No, no,
that's
they're not.
absolutely ridiculous.
The
It'd be
big
funny,
bad.
but it's ridiculous.
That would be funny, but I don't think that would just does not
No,
make any
especially
sense.
especially because this wolf character is meant to be taken really seriously. He's not a comedic character
Yeah,
at
and
all.
and also like the other wolf, and him and Puss in Boots have actually met before, like, and they've like
Yeah,
interacted
exactly,
before, and
exactly.
so
Yeah.
it's a bit like like, oh, he was just. I mean, I know people would say like, oh well, he was there waiting for him to die, and it's like, well, no, it
No,
doesn't make no sense. It
he's
makes
just
no
a character
sense.
that was made for this film. It was really clever, really well done.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually putting Puss in Boots' fear of death into a physical character that he has to
Exactly.
fight against.
He is literally like Puss's whole fear of the death in like as a persona really. And I did like how when Puss grabs the map and then Death shows up and then just turns into this kind of creepy dark forest as well. I like the influence he had on Puss in Boots. Like even when they're in the ice, what's it, the ice crystal kind of cave or
Oh yeah, the
yeah,
Cave of Souls or whatever it was
yeah,
called.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cave of Souls, and then like he's just seeing all of Puss's different lives. Um, and all of Puss's just completely different lives going forward, and how they died and everything. That is generally creepy and terrifying. The fact that death, like the idea that death is just there watching you and just waiting for you. He's just patiently waiting for you.
Yeah, man.
That is like a
That's the way
horrifying
it goes.
image.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great character. Really
Mm.
enjoyed him.
Mm. Let's talk about the animation. So obviously, I mean, they're doing the Spider Verse thing, obviously.
Ooh, yeah.
Um,
Everybody's new favorite thing now.
But I feel like as well, I think the main reason why people have gone to this one is because one, obviously, like it looks really cool, it looks really good. Um, I feel like in this movie, for example, you compare this to the if you look up Puss's original model in the first film and in the other Shrek films as well, and you compare it. Um, Let me see if I get an image here, and then you compare his model from that movie over to this one. It's like he looks a lot more better. He's a lot more slicker, more cartoony, and a bit more.
Well, I think it's because
Looks better.
a lot of those old CGI films like relied on like fur effects,
Mm,
but like to the point where it was like the only part of the character that you could really like see. Whereas then you
yeah,
can see with this, like there are fur effects, but it's much more shaped.
yeah, exactly.
Um, to follow the actual like the shape of the character.
Mm,
There's a thing in character design where it's like everything's made up of shapes, especially
mm,
cartoon characters. You've got to like use shapes to like give volume to the characters. And I
yeah,
think it does a better job of like in this newer style of actually showing that shape without the effects of like the hair and like the stuff like that that get in the way of it really.
mm.
Yeah.
And also like I mean, because obviously it's popular now, the whole new kind of Spider Verse kind of animation. And I think another reason why people are doing it as well is just because it. I mean, this is gonna sound very corporate and very no suit talk, but it's cheaper. It is literally cheaper to produce. It's more affordable for people to. It's more affordable for people to make. And the fact that there's an animation style, because obviously you've got Pixar and who increased their budgets like massively, and that's why their animation always looks good. And I think people must have. I think people had this idea like you have to, you need a big budget to like have your animated movie look good. But I think like this style in particular has shown to people actually you can have your movie cost only 90 to 110 million, and it can look just fine.
Well, the thing is, I actually think Pixar's been kind of lacking on the animation front for a while, to be honest
Oh,
with you.
really?
Just in terms of like, yeah, they look good in terms of like the
Mm.
visuals, but I think the animation itself has been lacking for a while. Like, I think that's why I like this kind of Spider Verse Puss in Boots style, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it now. I'd call it like 2D, 3D as like a
Mm.
specific thing, just as in it's 3D animation using 2D animation principles to
Yeah.
convey more expressive movement, which is generally what animation is the key to animation, to making animation look good anyway, most of the
Mm.
time. Um, and I think Pixar doesn't really do that. They rely on these sort of more relatively realistically moving characters. They don't use a lot of like big expressive like movements in their characters. They're very subtle and like move in a relatively normal way.
Mm.
Um, which is fine, I guess, but I think I just prefer this new style because it's just got that more like energy to it. Everything doesn't move realistically, but it looks good. It looks nice and smooth, and the transition from one piece of movement to another is just much more fluid to me, and I just prefer the way that looks. And
Yeah.
I think people don't realize that that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like the average Joe on the street, if I talk to them about animation principles, they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But the idea of
Mm.
like this thing that was very popular in 2D animation and was used by everyone, including Disney, has now become a technique used in 3D animation. I think a lot of people are going like, "Oh my, whoa, that
Mm.
looks really good. Why
Yeah.
don't more films do this?" And it's because it's tickling a part of a brain that reminds them of something that doesn't exist anymore, really, or
Yeah.
still exists but doesn't, not on big budget films anymore. Like 2D animation has been dead in a while for films, and
It's
which
been
is
dead. It's been dead for years, unfortunately.
which is a shame. It really
Yeah.
is
I
because
want it to come back, man. I miss 2D.
I don't
Bring it
know.
back. Bring it back. God damn it! It made me the man I am today.
I I would. I love 2D animation so much. I
Yeah.
understand it's to a point harder than 3D animation.
Mm.
But hey, I mean, there's a new Studio Ghibli film coming out this year, so
Exactly. We never know. I mean, and obviously, but yeah, I mean, the fact that because obviously, it's much more affordable to produce because it's cheaper.
well,
But the fact that I think the fact that we found an animation style that is cheaper, but it looks good. You know, what I mean, you could never tell it was. You could never tell. You'd think
well,
Spider Verse would have like a similar budget to a Pixar film,
hmm,
when in actual reality, it's a lot more
no, not
smaller.
really. But
Because yeah,
yeah, I think it's not just about cost effectiveness. So if we're talking about it from the
mm,
studio's perspective, it's also because Spider Verse was so popular.
oh yeah,
Like, Spider Verse made so much money and
exactly,
was
yeah,
like a really popular film, and then everybody's like, "Oh
yeah.
shit, well, why don't we just do that?" Like, you know
Just
what I mean?
mm,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
you might as well just do it. I
Mm.
understand that.
Did you ever
But
get around to watching Across the Spider Verse?
I did, yeah, I did.
Oh, what do you
It
think?
was
What do you think?
it was
Quickly.
very, very good.
It was
Very good, yeah.
fantastic.
It's fantastic,
Fantastic.
yeah. I'm
It's
very much looking forward to the next one.
I did. Have you heard it's been delayed indefinitely? The next one.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I
Yeah.
mean, I will say if as a one slight, just to kind of slightly deviate to the Spider Verse film, my
Yeah.
one sort of brief complaint, and this is something that I think Puss in Boots and TMNT does well, is I sometimes think they rely too much on the visual noise of
Mm.
those films. Like sometimes it is, even for me, and I can hack it pretty well. Do think it's a little too much, like with the
Yeah.
flashing colours and like stuff like that. It's just
Mm.
sometimes I just wish it was like, look, just tone it down a little bit. Just show the movement. The movement is what matters more so
Yeah.
than the
Exactly.
bright lights and effects.
Mm.
But considering how much effort they put into those Spider Verse films, I'm not surprised that the third one is delayed again.
Mm.
Not at all. I
Yeah.
mean, considering how much effort they put into just animating Spider Punk, like I
Mm.
could write an essay on how fucking complicated that is.
Mm. And
But yeah,
also the actors, on strike and stuff like that, they can't really get
that's
things to
obviously
boost.
that's obviously the other
Yeah.
big major thing as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
actors and
Also. Mm.
actors and writers as well, and probably
Yeah.
even animators at some point. I think it's working its way around.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in the creative
Mm.
industry who feel very frustrated with the fact that they're not earning enough,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah, support the writers and the actors on strike as well.
Support
I've said this
not
before, but
not just
support
not
them.
just those. Support everyone in the creative field.
Yeah,
Effectively,
everyone in the creative
everybody
field.
deserves
Mm,
decent wages. They
yeah,
deserve to do the job they love and not starve to death,
yeah,
or be
exactly.
kicked out of their home.
Mm,
That's ultimately the
and
end point of it. Yeah. So.
yeah, and also AI has no place in the creative industry as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware.
That could be a whole debate we could have at some point because
Mm.
I've got some things about that are going to be controversial,
Oh,
but it's not when I say this. I don't mean it as in like I necessarily agree with it.
mm,
It's just more of a matter of fact case, but
yeah,
that's for a conversation for another time.
mm,
Uh,
that's fine.
Puss in Boots. Let's
Yeah,
go back.
let's get back to this. Let's get back to this.
So we talked about this animation. It's
Yeah, the
very good.
animation looks terrific.
Very good.
Yeah, looks terrific. Looks amazing. It's just great animation, really. And it's a nice departure from the other Shrek movies. I feel like this is if anything, I feel like this is a bit of an improvement. Not the animation in the other films was bad by any means necessary, but you look at this, it's just so fluid and
It's expressive.
just expressive. Yeah, and the other Shrek films were just a bit what's the
Yeah,
word, rough.
well,
Um,
it was because obviously when Shrek
yeah.
first started, 3D animation was like pretty new,
Mm,
and at the time the only thing that they could really do was like mocap with 3D
yeah.
animation. They couldn't like animate it individually, like all the different points individually on like a rigged skeleton of a 3D model because it was just like way too just the processing power on rendering that alone is just way too much.
Exactly.
But we don't live in that time period anymore. We live in the modern era where computers are really good
Mm,
and they can do
yeah.
that now.
Mm. I don't know. Maybe, and I guess maybe that was what they were going for, more of a rough kind of style with Shrek at first, because obviously Shrek's a
Yeah, and I
parody
think
of fairy tales, and it doesn't
very
really.
much.
It's not aiming for like the cutesy Disney kind of thing. It's aiming for like
Well,
now where the hard middle kids or something like that. I don't know.
yeah, man, with the edgy. This is the film your mum doesn't want you to see. No,
Itch.
no, but also as well, it's because I think this is why 3D animation got the reputation for a while for being like, oh, it's the films that like adults watch. It's
Mm,
cartoons for like for older kids and adults
yeah.
because they have like Welsh humor in it and
Mm,
all the characters don't move like cartoon characters. They look more realistic because they've got like hair and simulation on them and stuff.
yeah.
Just because at the time that was just the easy way to animate it. Now we don't need to do that anymore. We can make it look, I feel
Mm,
more like 2D animation, which
yeah.
is
Make it feel
fantastic for
animated.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic for me because I love that shit.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, do you
Uh,
think so obviously we have other people doing the style as well. We've got the new TMT movie and
that's right.
we've got Disney kind of doing something that's a bit inspired by the style with that new movie Wish they've got coming out. I don't think it's not completely the style, but looks very reminiscent of that kind of style. So do you think there's a chance Pixar may acquire this animation style sometime in the future or
Yeah,
uh,
possibly. I don't see why
hmm,
not. I mean, it depends, really, doesn't it? Like,
yeah. Toy Story 5. I mean, that's what they'll use it for.
I mean, it would be weird for Toy Story to do it.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
that's
maybe in like an original film,
oh yeah.
I could see him doing it.
That was a joke. Like that was a
I
joke.
assumed it was. Yeah, fine.
um,
Um,
they've probably already got that in development right now
yeah,
as we speak.
yeah. Can't wait to not watch
Uh,
it. Sorry.
but yeah, the animation is terrific. Fantastic. Let's talk about the themes. The
Wow,
themes of the movie.
themes.
The
Wow, I like
themes.
themes.
Death
My
is a
favorite. Yeah,
death is the main theme.
death.
Literally,
Overcoming fear.
yeah,
Learning to appreciate what you have, and
yeah,
evil. Evil is my
mm,
favorite theme.
yeah.
That's I really like Big Jack Horner. I don't know what
Mm.
else to say to you. No,
I do.
I think the themes are like they're very simple and effective, and they're used in an effective way. That's all that really matters with any themes that you've got.
Mm,
The core point of this story is that it's like Puss in Boots dealing with coming to the end of
mm,
his life, as it were,
yeah.
in quotation marks, and it's just about him learning to overcome that fear and
Mm.
rise to the occasion. That's all it is, really, and it's just dead simple, but it's effective.
Yeah, it's fact. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I like the fact there's a lot more, anime movies kind of, having that kind of thing, being about death. Obviously we had Pixar's Soul back in 2020. That was it. Which
Wow.
which I do, which I absolutely loved. I really loved that movie, to be honest.
I just,
I was, yeah,
these themes are great and all, but
mm,
obviously they have to be slightly sanitized for children.
Exactly.
I'd
Yeah.
like to see more adult films dealing with more complex themes and like and animated in this way. Do you know what? There was
Mm.
that film that Netflix released. I forgot what that fucking film is called. It's it. It's called something like it's called something galactic, but it's like an animated drama film, and
Mm.
it's done in the style of that Spider-Verse style.
Okay.
I can't remember what the bloody film's called, but it's on Netflix, and I might
Mm.
actually give that a watch because I've been meaning to see it for a while.
Mm.
Because I'm curious to see how that style works in a film that's not action focused.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because obviously
Mm.
this film really lends well to fluid action, which
Yeah.
is what
Exactly. Yeah.
has worked well for the Puss in Boots film, Teenage Mutant Ninja
Mm.
Turtles, and Spider Verse, because they're all
Mm.
action comedy films, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
so it'd be interesting to see that. I just want more adult animation as well.
Mm.
I feel like I've harped on about that already a lot on
Mm.
here, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I mean,
please.
adult animation is important. I mean, I feel like the only adult animations we've got really is, Family Guy, Simpsons, Rick and Morty,
Yeah,
which
in the West, definitely.
yeah,
There's a couple of
mm,
other. Adult Swim's got a few shows on it that aren't just adult comedies. But
mm,
even then, they don't really like. They're not on all the time, and like a lot of
yeah,
people don't watch them because it's on. Adult Swim's still quite a niche programming block in
mm,
America, anyway. I mean, I watch
yeah,
it, but And then the only other place you got to go to is anime, and I get fucking sick and tired of anime every now and again. 'Cause I'm just like, it's just the same shit over and over again. It's
I
all.
mean, I,
I'm done for now. I need to take a break.
anime is one of those things where there's a lot of I want to get into anime, but it's I think the problem with anime for me is that it's such a big kind of commitment. Any anime show you watch,
For a lot of them,
yeah,
there's a couple out there that have only got like a few seasons or like even one season long that are fantastic. I
mm,
could recommend them all day
mm,
to some of the
okay,
best ones you can watch. So we'll talk. We'll talk.
we'll talk.
We'll talk. We'll do a meeting about it.
What do
Anime
you
meeting.
mean? What's
And I think
an anime
I'm gonna
meeting?
turn Connor into a weeb, guys. Sorry.
A weeb. Oh no. um yeah. I mean I do want more adult stuff. I mean I think like that's more adult animation would be nice. But the themes in this movie, they're pretty well done. And, having Death be, actually living, breathing person, chasing Puss down, that's
Yeah.
quite effective. But also I do like, how the fact that, rather than doing what, your standard anime movie would have done, where he gets his wish and he gets his lives back. He actually decides, nah, I'm gonna destroy the wish, and I'm gonna just live this one last life to its fullest, and I'm not gonna have actually. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this, I like the end. I do like the ending
No,
where
I do as well.
they don't
It's
they
very
don't do what
satisfying. It's a classic satisfying conclusion where everything
mm,
gets wrapped up. Things are set up and they're paid off
yeah,
later down the line.
it doesn't do
But
what what films would normally do. I feel like the Ice Age films would have done that, where where say like I don't know, Sid gets a wish and he wishes to be alive or something, and yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
that's what makes it good. It just had a
mm,
very simple story and idea, and it just stuck with it.
mm, yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
It worked.
Yeah. Let's talk about the action sequences. I feel like with
Yeah.
this, I feel like this animation style really does lend itself to action very well. Obviously, you have this movie where the action sequences are just very, they're intense and they're engaging. Not that action sequences have always been, action sequences in animation have always been good with
Mhm.
that kind of aspect, but they're but with this film in particular, I think with this style, the way they're able to get the camera to like move into certain angles and the
Well,
animation and the
I think that's the key to it really is because
yeah,
there have been loads of like 2D animated stuff that have like
mm,
had action in it that's really like good.
mm,
Like not just in terms of like even anime. I mean, even in the West, there's been really good ones, and I think it's
yeah,
because in like sort of 2D animation, it's very
mm,
easy to use like you skip frames
yeah,
if you want to convey speed in animation. So like
mm,
they can just like go, well, we want this guy to punch this guy instead of
yeah,
you don't draw 25 pictures in a second of a guy being punched. You just draw like maybe
mm,
four. You draw the punch up, like the fist being brought back. Then you
yeah,
draw like it coming forward. Then you literally just skip to when the punch is near his face, and then it connects. That's all you
yeah,
do because you want to convey speed and momentum to make the punch feel heavy, for
yeah,
instance. And I think with 3D animation, obviously, because it hasn't really had the tools to do that, both in terms of camera
mm,
angles and in terms of like how 3D animation is just literally just regular movement.
Yeah.
It just now with the way that kind of animation style, it goes back to
Mm.
the old 2D principles, and it makes it so
Yeah.
much more effective. It feel the hits feel punchy.
Mm.
Like damn, it's so good. Like the
Yeah.
action scenes in this film are so good,
Oh
and
yeah.
action scenes in like 2D animation like this, a 3D animation now are getting really good again, and I'm so glad
Mm.
to hear, so glad to see that.
Oh yeah, like even like the Mario Brothers movie, for example, the action that's pretty good. You see how like obviously seeing how fluid it is, and I feel like having when sometimes when the camera cuts to the 2D side scrolling stuff, you're able to actually like see it properly and see all that happening.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and I feel like with this style though, like one thing problem I had with TMNT Mutant Mayhem was it was hard at points to follow the action sequences a little bit. I'm not
I
too
definitely,
sure
I
about.
definitely think, I definitely think Puss in Boots does the best job with that. I think it has the
Yeah.
best
Oh
action
yeah.
choreography of the three films. Like
Mm.
the action flows really well together and it's
Yeah.
very readable. Whereas I feel like both Spider Verse sometimes is a bit too flashy in terms of like
Mm.
the colors and like the stuff it uses. So sometimes the action
Yeah.
can be a little bit like, what the fuck's going on? And the
Mm.
TMNT was all right, and but that really scratchy art style that it's got can be a
Yeah.
little bit like too much. But
Mm,
I feel like
exactly.
Puss in Boots has like got that nice point in the middle where it's like,
Mm.
no, here is the action needs to be clear and focused,
Mm.
and it works really well as a result of it, and it makes it really exciting and really engaging. And I think that's what got me into the film was like seeing these action scenes,
Yeah, exactly.
like come
Mm.
forth, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like that makes me so much more into the film
Mm,
than it would
exactly.
have been any other way.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, exactly. And the action is just it's just phenomenal really. Like the opening action sequence with the giant and the bells and everything. That's just it's crazy to like you even watch that even on like a TV screen and it's just like, how did they do that? How did they do that? It just looks great and the final action sequences with him and sequence with him and Death and even everybody else, firing over the wish in that kind of
Yeah,
on the that
on
platform. That was quite
on the
cool.
star, yeah, it's
On the
so
star, yeah.
yeah, it
On
was
the
sick.
star. On the star.
It's a
Uh,
star indeed. Puss
it's a
in Boots is a
star.
star.
He is a star, yeah. Um, and that was really cool. And other action sequences as well, like when he's being chased by Death in the woods, or even when each of them hold the map and and the direction kind of changes
Hmm.
as well. That looked incredible. That's just one of those things where you're watching, just think, how did they accomplish that? How did they do that? And obviously the answer is that they're very talented animators at DreamWorks, which
That's
is
right. That's
mm,
right. They're very
which is
good.
good. They're very good. Yeah, they're
They've
very
had time to
good.
train with to
Mm.
train a dragon as well. Like that's
Oh
been
yeah.
steadily like just. I feel like that path leading into Puss in
Mm.
Boots is very clearly there from that film
Yeah.
franchise.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, overall for me, the action was terrific. And it was very
Top
engaging and
notch, top
and
notch.
top notch, as they would say.
It's got stiff competition this year though with everything else. That's like all the other action animation stuff that's gone on.
Mm,
It's just
yeah,
this year in general, not just for animation, but even just like film in general, has been really fucking mental.
yeah,
I'm
oh
just
yeah.
generally just so much. So if you're doing an award show at the end of the year, let me know.
Mm. I don't know. We'll do a countdown like top like anime movies from best to worst or something like that. I don't know.
No, we'll
Yeah,
do we'll do the usual top 10 films of the year.
top 10 films of the year. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've got to do it.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll do that. And yeah, that's the action sequences. Is there anything else you want to talk about this movie?
Oh, I don't know. Like, there's so much. It's just like what I think the film has going for it best is it's got a feel.
Mm, mm,
It's got like a feel, an emotional. It's something that's very hard to capture with even with film in general. This sort of emotional like resonance that I have with it. I don't know. Maybe that's for me. I think there might be some people out there who don't feel that way.
yeah.
But like it has this sort of thing about it that just drew me in, and it made
Mm,
me very emotionally invested in it. And that is something which I think is very difficult to do. There are films which I watch where I go, "Oh, I really enjoyed that," but I'm not fully invested in it on an emotional level. And I think that's why I ended up watching this film quite a lot when it came out. I
yeah.
think I went to the cinema about 3 times to watch it,
Oh wow.
which is yeah. I mean, I don't usually do that, but with this one, I really did because I just felt something about it. I was just like, it just made me feel like so good to watch this film. Like,
Mm,
I don't know what it was. I think it was just because everything in it was just like flawless, both in terms of the animation and the characters, everything.
yeah.
Like so
Mm,
well done that it's just kind of like even in comparison to the Spider-Verse films, which I do really like.
mm,
Um, but I think even then they sometimes have some characters that I don't really just care for, or like
mm,
they focus too much on the side. Here's the jokey Spider-Man who does the weird thing because he's from the weird universe, and it's like yeah, all right, cool. But no, they just kept it really simple and straightforward and had all the
mm,
characters have some purpose to the story,
yeah.
and nothing felt wasted. It just mm, it's so good. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. This movie hits you in the feels. Like
Yeah,
it's
it
just one of
does.
those things.
It
Yeah,
does.
it's just one of those things. It just feels like a classic, animated movie, like that we would have watched when we were kids, over and over and over again
I
on
think
like
even I
VHS.
think even just outside of animation, I think in just film in general,
Yeah,
it's been
exactly.
a long time since you've seen a film which is just like no, instead of all this, there's no big fucking evil
Mm,
monster that's trying to eat the planet or whatever. It's not a
yeah,
serious drama. It's not like it's just a good old fashioned. Here's a film where there's some characters who are dealing with something, and here's them. You're watching this film to watch them overcome it and for
mm,
them to become better people at the end of it, which is something you don't
yeah,
really see a lot nowadays. Very
mm.
common in like 80s and 90s in particular, which is obviously like an era of cinema that I was exposed to a lot more
Oh,
because
it's
it
the
was
same.
when I
Yeah.
was born.
Mm,
And like I think everybody's become quite cynical and quite jaded now, and that's not what Puss in Boots felt like. It didn't
yeah.
feel like it didn't feel like at one stage it was going to turn to the audience and be like, oh yeah, isn't this so like 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 having a little wink at the audience, being like, oh yeah, this is so ridiculous. It's just like no, it just
Mm.
stuck to its guns, and it just delivered something that I think a lot of people are going to remember for a long
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. And it's like I feel like as well the 80s and 90s, particularly, there was a lot more risk with those movies. I feel like, particularly with family movies, because you had movies like Return to Oz, which was like properly dark and
There's
messed
loads of
up.
them. You could go on
Yeah, and
for
then you had
ages
like
about how many there
I
is.
did, yeah, and then Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, like all
Dark
just
Crystal is so
mm,
good. I love
mm,
that film. I mean, it's
yeah,
not really a good film because it's kind of got fucked up by the studio, but that's a whole other topic for another day. I still really love that film because I love the way it looks.
yeah. I also had the '90s TMNT movie with the Jim Henson suits, which I still say to this day, if they ever go live action again, bring the suits back, bring them back, bring
I
back
don't want them.
practical effects.
I don't want them to do a live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I just don't
Mm,
think it works in live action.
mm,
I feel like as a cartoon it just works because it's such a ridiculous concept that
mm,
you literally can't imagine real life giant turtles wandering
yeah.
around like that. I just can't imagine it. That's why I think it works so well as a cartoon.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
why I really enjoyed the new film as well because it was
Mm,
just like, now let's just take it back to the classic,
yeah.
infuse it with a bit of 90s hip hop and a bit of grungy sort of art style. It's just
Yeah.
it was
Exactly.
really good.
Mm.
But this isn't a review
Um.
for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
No.
This is a
No.
review for Puss
Puss
in Boots: The Last
Puss in Boots
Wish.
too. But yeah, and the fact that Puss in Boots, took some big risks as well. Like
Well,
it
yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah,
I,
it just felt like people they were like, oh yeah, let's just tell a good story. That's
it's
kind of the
weird to
thing
think
about it.
that telling like an interesting story is considered a big risk nowadays.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, so
that's
telling a story that isn't part of like some algorithm, and yet look
mm,
what it did. It made look how much money it made. I mean, I know in comparison to some other films, it obviously wasn't like the most like best selling thing on the planet. But my God, man, it still made a decent amount of money back.
exactly, yeah.
And it's like
It,
yeah, man, that's what people want.
yeah, that's what people want. People just want, we just want good stories. Tell the good
We want
story.
good stories. Yeah,
We
man,
want good
exactly.
stories, man. So I think the last thing we should probably talk about is probably the future. Let's talk about the future because yeah, because obviously
The future of the human race.
future human race. Now the future of the future of Shrek as a whole franchise, because obviously, I mean, it's pretty much a given now. We're going to get Shrek 5. I think they've announced it so many
Yes,
times. I think it was announced like,
yes.
I mean, it was originally we were originally supposed to get Shrek 5. It was supposed to be 5 films originally, and then something happened, and then Shrek 3 came out and didn't do very well. So they was like, let's just make it 4 and wrap it up. And then sometime in 2015, 2016. someone at DreamWorks is like, we want to do Shrek 5. And then 2019, Chris Meledandri became a creative consultant at DreamWorks and said, yeah, we're definitely going to do Shrek 5. We're gonna try and make it not feel like a sequel though, but not a reboot. And it's like, what? Okay. But yeah, speaking of which though, I think the question is though, do we want Shrek 5? Do we want Shrek to continue as a whole?
I could take it or leave it.
Mm.
I don't really see what they could do with the story that
Yeah.
doesn't involve like just them remaking the whole thing, or like
Yeah.
like what more can you really do with it? Like really, you never know. I mean, I would if someone had told me like oh they're making a Puss in Boots 2, I'd be like, well, what can they really do with it? And yeah, here we are. They made one of the best animated films that I've seen in a long while. So, I think the way to look at it is that it's like unfortunately, there's not really a trend for this stuff staying on of such good quality for long.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I'm excited for Shrek 5, but I'll give it a watch when it comes out.
Yeah.
You never know.
I feel like I'm going to take a wild guess that Shrek 5 is going to use the same animation style as well, considering we see Shrek and Donkey and all the other Shrek characters in this movie as well. I feel like that would be quite interesting to.
Maybe.
I mean, it'd be nice to see like a Shrek film that looks a little different. But I mean, it wouldn't look too different though. Like he still looks the same.
Yeah, it just depends. It just depends on what story they want to do. That will be
that's the main big thing. Because I know one of the writers who wrote The Boss Baby, he wrote a script for Shrek 5, and he said I think he was talking about it around 20. Let's see, Michael McCullers. He was writing a script for Shrek 5. And I think he said like, oh yeah, it's going to be this big reinvention of the franchise, and it's a very personal story to me. And it's like, a reinvention of the Shrek franchise. Like, how can you? That does interest me, but it's a bit like, how the fuck do you reinvent Shrek after all this time? Like, what do you think? What's your opinion? Do you think Shrek can be reinvented, or?
Yeah, I guess it could be reinvented. I don't really know. I don't know. I guess I've never really considered like, I don't know. With Shrek, is a weird one. Shrek's such a strange thing to think about as like a concept. It's just like, oh, it's an ogre that like became a hero, and he's obviously meant to be kind of a play on like the whole point of the knight in shining armor, and like I get it. If you want to switch it up a little bit, maybe, I don't know. Having been not necessarily very aggressive, I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can do it. It just depends, really, to be honest with you, what they want to do with the story. It's just, I don't know.
I have heard people suggest maybe they could do like a reboot call where they like ignore Shrek 3 and Shrek 4 and have it set after Shrek 2 and just pretend the other two didn't happen or something like that.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, obviously you get to erase, you have to erase their children and stuff. Or,
I was going to say, you have to kill their children.
Or reintroduce them as, I don't know, something. I mean, I don't know, like, it's a weird one, but obviously, do you think Puss in Boots will get another standalone film as well, or do you think he'll...
I don't know, it depends, really. I mean, if they're going with Shrek 5, which seems like the more profitable franchise, like, that's probably where they're just going to go with it and just see how it plays out from there. You never know. Maybe more spin-off characters from the fairy tale verse.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a pretty packed film already, because obviously they hint at it. There's the end credits scene is with Puss and Kitty Softpaws and the dog as well, like coming to far away. So it's a bit, that film's going to be quite packed already. Which will be interesting seeing the other two characters work off, Donkey and all the other Shrek characters as well, which will be an interesting sight to see whenever it comes out, because I think right now that they're chatting with the actors, like making deals to get them back as well, because obviously Michael Myers Mike Myers, he's busy doing documentaries. Eddie Murphy's just doing his thing. Karen Diaz has recently come out of retirement of act, so she, you can get her back easily. and maybe we'll finally see Lord Farquaad again, because I think he was supposed to come back in like every Shrek movie.
What?
Yeah,
Well, he's supposed to come back in every Shrek movie. How?
like
He died.
well, I feel like in like the development of each movie, he was supposed to come back in like
Oh, I see what
some
you
certain
mean.
stage.
That makes sense.
But then they ended up like writing him out of the movie at some point. Like even in Shrek Forever After, because the story of that is that he makes a deal with Rumpelstiltskin and he gets sent to another universe where he never saved Fiona and and that stuff. It's like it's a Wonderful Life kind of
Right.
thing with Shrek Forever After. And then I think Lord Farquaad was actually supposed to be in that one. He was I think he was supposed to be like a servant to Rumpelstiltskin or something like that.
Right.
But again, they cut him out. Like they keep thinking of like, oh yeah, we'll bring him back and we'll bring John Lithgow back as well, and then they ended up writing him out of the sequel. And it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
even though
You never know.
they could bring him back. I mean, Lord
Right.
Farquaad, Shrek 5, Lord Farquaad returns. The return of Lord Farquaad.
Shrek 5, Farquaad's in the house.
Shrek 5, Farquaad lives.
I don't know. Maybe they'll do a redone version of All Star. I don't know. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen here. Anything can happen here.
Anything can happen with the right amount of money.
Anything can happen as long as you throw a massive pile of money at DreamWorks and say make this, and then they make it. Yeah, that's literally it.
That's it, man. Shrek 5 coming to theaters at some point.
Coming to theaters somewhere in the distant future. We don't know yet. Yeah, and that's it. That's it for Puss in Boots.
That's it for Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish. If you still haven't seen it yet, it's on Blu-ray now.
Yeah,
Go buy it.
yeah.
Go buy it on digital, but buy it somewhere and watch it over and over and over again and fall in love with it. Like so many people have done. It's a good movie. It's a fun time. Out of 5, I'd give it a 4. Actually, no. Out of 5, you give it a 5. Out of 10, give it a 10. 10 out of 10. 5 out of 5. Yeah, go watch it, go see it, and buy it on Blu-ray. Enjoy it for what it is, and what it is a good film, and hopefully it'll win. Maybe it'll win. Well, actually, no, it lost.
It lost, didn't it?
Yeah, it lost to the Oscar. What movie? We lost Pinocchio. That was it.
Pinocchio, yeah. Which to be fair, I really like that film. And
I still have not seen that. I need to sort my ass out and
you gotta watch it. It's so good.
I know.
That was also a film that's kind of like a more adult take on like a classic fairy tale.
Yeah.
And I had like a really, really nice bittersweet conclusion. Highly recommend it to you out there in the podcasting world. Go watch Pinocchio and then watch Puss in Boots and then watch Spider-Verse and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, watch more.
Yeah, and then watch Super Mario Bros. Oh wait, you've probably already seen that because it made like
$1 billion jillion.
Yeah, I've actually got it on Blu-ray now. I bought it on Blu-ray like weeks ago, and I still haven't watched it yet.
Cool.
Yeah, I need to get down to rewatching that at some point.
I think I watched it the one time, and then I was like, "That's enough for me for now." I'll probably rewatch it again at some point, but I've not got like a burning desire to watch it at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, everyone, that's it. That's it for this podcast episode. Cheers for tuning in. Obviously, as before, I'll leave the Shedonist Studios LinkedIn page down below in the description below, so you can check those guys out. I'm guessing the website's still under maintenance, Alex, or
yeah, it'll come back up at some point. I don't know when.
Some point in the distant future, when Shrek 5 comes out, that's when it'll come back.
Shrek 5, we're going to compete with Shrek 5 at the box office.
At the box office, yeah. We'll win. We'll win.
Right.
You'll win somehow.
Make £1 billion jillion, please. Give me money.
And obviously, I'll link down my website down below. So please share that around and help me find more work in the film and TV industry. And yeah, everyone. So until next time. See you later.
Bye, everyone.